It's my pleasure to be back in IIT Chennai, and it's always like anytime I'm around, I would love to come back here. And Professor Pradeep is always like within almost like I don't know, like fraction of a minute. I think the response comes. So it's my pleasure, and thank you for making me a part of your winter school. So I think this is an unexpected lecture. Maybe you're all planning to go home now, and not home, but you just want to go back. But this is something I'll try to keep it short. I'll try to make the talk itself very short, and if interested, we can always discuss the details. Um, so I'm coming from University of Manchester. This is our main campus, and I work in National Graphene Institute and Department of Physics. I'm a professor in Department of Physics, but we are also working with National Graphene Institute. And so I think so many of the talks might have been on water, or maybe not. Materials generally. Okay, so we know how water behaves in bulk.
We had a lecture on water droplets, though.
Droplets. So the same laws could be applied in even micro scale flows as well. What we apply in the kitchen tap can be applied in micro scale flows. When it comes to sub nanometer scale flows, which is angstrom scale, the rules of classical physics would not hold. The bulk parameters like viscosity, density, all these lose the same meaning as what you see in the bulk. But and new types of anomalies appear. This is the molecular scale, which is less than 1 nanometer in size. So this is where the interactions when you confine molecules to such spaces, which are about 1 nanometer, we can see new types of phenomena and new anomalies. And this has been mastered in nature very well. Within protein channels, for instance, which are ion channels, which are pretty selective for a specific molecule like water and reject everything else like proton even. So that is an aquaporin channel, which is also called water channel because it only allows water. And similarly, there are selective ion channels. Their constrictions at the narrowest are about angstrom scale. So they literally send one molecule at a time through their constrictions, even guide their orientation, which gives them the highest precision and selectivity. So can we make very simple models of these in synthetic world? This was the idea. And I started in Manchester, which is the birthplace of our, where the 2D materials were discovered. So I was in condensed matter physics group. So I joined long back, as a postdoc, I started. So this is where the building blocks that I could find around was 2D materials, but the most simplest building block was graphene. So there was already a Nobel Prize, quite popular research about graphene exfoliation. So the thought experiment that I started with was, what if we isolate the graphene layer not from the top of the crystal, but from the middle of the crystal? So what we would be left with is one atom thin empty space. And if you remove many layers, you will be having corresponding number of thin layers of empty space. So these I would call as 2D empty space. And this is what we construct in a Lego-like assembly and study fundamentals of matter and flows. So we create these by using 2D materials as building blocks. We put these one on top of each other. The middle portion has the cavity or carefully removed layers. And these 3 layers are stacked one on top of each other with simply van der Waals forces. There's no glue which holds them. And this is the cross section of one such channel, which is about 2 layers thin, 2 graphene layers thin. So it's quite wide. It has large aspect ratio, and it can be created. And we can simply alter the thickness of the spacer and create very thick channels or thin channels. We can program what the thickness, width, and all the dimensions. So we do this on a chip, which is like a freestanding membrane of silicon nitride. So this is the 3 layers of this sandwich that you can say. So the bottom crystal of 2D material like graphite or HPN or MOS2 are the like. So and the spacer is lithographically patterned to create these channels. And then we create this entry from the backside of the silicon nitride membrane etching. We cover it with the top layer to create the entry and exit flows. No, so these are very small scale. Each one is 1 atom thin. So we are using electron beam lithography to cut these. Like we take one graphene layer and then cut it into stripes. We use electron beam lithography to create the mask and then etch it with oxygen. So this is the oxygen plasma etching. So that's how a device would look like. So now this is a device which has angstrom scale channels, which are the 3.4 angstroms are the multiples of graphene layers. So we can control it. And now we have this on a bulk like chip, which we can put in between two chambers and simply study flows. So we could study lots of flows. So we studied gas flows, water flows, ion flows, and look at energy generation from pushing the ions simply. So I will do glimpse of some of the recent ones to some of the ones which are needed to explain some of the studies. So we simply first started with water flow. So we measure this by gravimetry. So we take a water container and then seal it with a chip which has the angstrom scale channels. As the water evaporates, the weight reduces, and then we look at the weight loss. So this can give us the water flux, and we looked at now channels with different walls. Let's say graphene walls or HBN, hexagonal boron nitride walls, or MOS2 walls. So the friction of water molecule on these different surfaces would be different. And we indeed see that graphene walls or the graphite walls had very high flows compared to isostructural HBN. So it's similar hexagonal lattice, but the atoms are boron and nitrogen. So we can see the slip lengths are very high in the graphene walls, and also there is anomalous behavior of this peak, which is water velocities up to 1 meters per second in this kind of thicknesses, which is about 3 to 4 layers of water that can fit in this empty space. So when we go below that, the water flow again reduces. So when we go much about 2 nanometers thickness, then it is classical flow. So classical flow holds until like 2 nanometers thickness. So this, but whereas with HBN, there is no anomalous peak, and also the slip lengths are much smaller. I point to a literature paper where they tried to look at meniscus of water on graphene covered walls. They also observed this fast motion of the meniscus. I think we do it much more quantitatively here, but here it's a similar observation that graphene provides the flow. So if maybe when there is a graphene coverage, it can provide faster flow. So recently we collaborated with the group of Professor Carlos Merles to do NMR. So because we were always looking at bulk measurements where we look at output flows, and so we never had an opportunity to do local nanoscale spectroscopy. So this is literally NMR, but done on a molecular level. So this is based on quantum sensing. So the quantum sensing is from the diamond substrate, which has nitrogen vacancy sensors. So these nitrogen vacancy have luminescence, they emit light, and this is quite sensitive to the spin nearby. Yeah. So basically we constructed our channels, the graphene channels, on the diamond substrate, which has the pre-implanted NV sensors, and this is how it looks like. So this is again modular approach. We can do these channels on any reasonably smooth surface. So for this measurement, we did it on diamond. For other measurements, we did it on mica and different surfaces. Yeah. So this was about 5 nanometer thick channels, and so this is how it would look like. So the water molecules are in proximity with these NV sensors, which are shallow depths, about 8 nanometer, to make sure there is enough signal. And we look at the emission, the photoluminescence. Photoluminescence, when there is a resonance, it would change. So this is the NMR proton peak. So this is how it would look like. This is the coinciding with the Larmor frequency of the proton. So this is what it is when water was immediately filled, and we could see that sustained until 14 days. So this is literally from volume of about like few molecules that we can see the signal. So in fact, I was very happy to see first time that locally we can actually detect the presence of water, and as it evaporates, we can see it becomes much more complex spectra. We haven't gone on analyzing this because the signal is very poor, but we do see the evidence of it. This is purely water.
Or the state? What is the state of that?
I think it's too noisy spectra to comment on the state. So probably here, when it is evaporating, there are some clusters of water. That's why we see multiple peaks emerging. Whereas in the case of, because this is 5 nanometer channel, so maybe we should do even thinner. So we were not very optimistic. We thought to give enough signal, we made with 5 nanometer. So this is the bulk water. I think here there is something happening, but we don't dare to analyze it in detail here. So the other type of studies we did was looking at salt water through these channels. So salt ions typically are about the sizes mentioned here, 6 angstrom to 10 angstrom, and we can precisely tune our this channel height or the capillary height. So we wanted to see how the mobilities or the separation of these ions would be affected when we have this precise template of a given height and vary the size of the ion. So with the precise height of 2 layers of graphene, which is 6.8 angstroms, we saw that the ions which are similar in size could go through, whereas the ions which are larger like aluminium, the mobility is severely affected, but they still go through. So that means this shell, the hydration shell, is deformable, it's compressible, and it squeezes through this pipe. To achieve complete steric selectivity, so we needed channels which are about 3.4 angstroms at least, which is which is at least half the size of the ion. And this is again like very well how the nature works. When we look at the ion channels, they are about 3 angstroms. So I think we need this size to, if we are achieving a pure, not charge based, but purely steric based selectivity. So with these channels, we can exclude everything else, but proton still goes through, and proton goes through this 2D water. So when we were looking at salt permeation, this ionic permeation, we came across something interesting. So I'll introduce this, which is ionic memory, the concept of ionic memory. So as we know, the processing of information and storage of information happens through electrons. But in brain, in natural systems, it happens through chemicals. It happens through release of ions, trigger of neurotransmitters, right? So it's not in the same way that the computers work and the brain works. So because there are ion channels behind behind these synapses, and these are also angstrom scale selective channels. So we wanted to see how our channels would behave when we increase the voltage. So these are simple cyclic voltammetry, you may say. This is an IV. What you see here is the forward and reverse rays do not match, and this is pinched at the origin. So there is a certain hysteresis area, and this is more clearly seen in the conductance versus voltage plot. So there are at least 2 conductance states, but it's an analog system. There are multiple states, but at any given voltage, you can see at least 2 conductance states. So and this only happens when there is confinement. So when we take very thick channels, there is no hysteresis, it just becomes straight line. And we can also vary the height, we can also vary the salt, we can vary the concentration. So there are many parameters. Before that, I should try to vary the frequency of this voltage to see, because there was this very nice paper from Chua, who is considered as the I don't know if there is a name for him, but if there is a name like father of memristor world or not, but he is. So there was theoretical papers before even memristor experimentally was found. So there were 3 signatures. One is this pinched hysteresis loop and variation of the frequency, which results in the area hysteresis, the variation of the frequency with the hysteresis area, and that at higher frequency it goes to a straight line. So these are the 3 signatures, so which we need to verify. So we also see that like electronic devices, we also have this frequency variation, and we see a maxima in this area of the loop. So then literally I'm plotting this area of the loop with the frequency, and this maxima corresponds to the memory time scale. Yeah. So it's a millisecond memory time scale. And why does this happen? Because the ions in the confinement do not can form pairs or dissociate. So this association and dissociation of these pairs could lead to there is a kinetics involved in this association and dissociation, which gives the time factor. So which is what builds in the memory. So you apply a first pulse and second pulse of voltage, it won't give the same current. Yeah, so there is a history. If whether it is a first pulse or a 10th pulse of voltage that you have given, you see a different conductance state. So that is so we now went ahead, we tried to prove several types of memory in this article, so where we showed 4 different types of memory loops, which so far I don't think any solid state memory device can be shown has shown within the same device. So we tried to mimic some of the biological phenomena. This is short-term depression or synaptic filtration. So let's say you are in a room with full of clutter. Let's say you are in a cave with with lots of noise around, right? So but you can filter out the noise and focus, or you can focus on a conversation, right? So this is like filtering of random events, but only focusing on something which generates a consistent trigger. So how this can be mimicked? So basically there is only firing of a synapse, release of these chemicals when there is a delay and it's not random. The event should not be random. So we mimic this by giving 2 triggers. So if they are closely spaced, then there is the second trigger doesn't give same amount of conductance state. We need to relax for certain time, and then only we can see the next trigger leading to the conductance. So this is the short-term depression. It takes some time to recover, and we can very well quantify these time scales of the depression and also control it with concentration, with the type of the salt and the channel to some extent. So other thing we tried to mimic was a simple learning phenomena, which is when there are coordinated movements, we can actually make the connection stronger. Cells that fire together wire together. This is the simple phenomena. So basically, when imagine learning a new process, there are multiple signals. For instance, driving a car or learning a guitar, you have multiple signals, and these all, because they're all done simultaneously. Let's say you are changing a gear and looking at the road, or looking at the traffic. So you're all doing it simultaneously. The coordination of these events becomes easier because their connections become stronger. So similarly, in learning an instrument, there is multiple things involved: sound, as well as coordination of the muscles movement. So we do simple algorithm to mimic this, to give a sequence of pulses. Like there is a pre-synaptic, pre-event, post-event type of trigger, and we time these events. So when these events are timed, how is the retention? When they are close, there is a high retention of the conductance. When they are far away, there is no retention of the conductance. So this is how a biological neuron would look like, that retention, and this is ours. Yeah. So yeah, I think maybe
Take some questions.
yeah. So maybe I would go to the end. I would skip this part. Yeah. So very important. I would like to thank my group members and my fantastic collaborators. I have done a lot of collaborative work. I take my platform and go to people who have the niche expertise. So I've been very successful in with finding excellent people to collaborate. So thanks to them. So most of the work that I presented, the memory work, we started together with Professor Lidrik Bouquet. Some of the work I didn't present, but I'd like to thank all my collaborators and my colleagues and my students. Thank you for your attention. And we are doing a meeting on molecular transport in nanochannels. I'm organizing this in Manchester in April 2026. So please come. Thank you.
So water moves. Many other things can move, right?
Yes.
So almost anything can move. So
Yes.
you're saying that you take this platform and go anywhere
Yes.
where the expertise lies. And
Yes.
so what are the good things where exciting discoveries can be made? What are the molecules? What are the materials? What are the ions? Are you only playing with ions and all that, or not only electrons and what?
It's a very good question, very important question. I think so far we have explored simple organic molecules as well. wherein we saw dielectric constants can significantly reduce. Let's say we take a very highly polar molecule like acetonitrile, but within the confinement, the dielectric constant goes from 40 to 38 to 7. So this is something which I think not considered when using such liquids in confinement. So other things we have just recently started with ionic liquids, which are like without this water aqueous electrolyte. But ionic liquids I don't think as easy to work with as the salts. But we did see they do not behave like salts at all. So with respect to their conductance, with respect to their even the ionic memory behavior, um, even though they are the most concentrated form of ions, I think their layering within the channels and their interactions are not at all same as how the concentrated electrolyte, let's say 10 molar, 20 molar solution of salt would behave. So it's completely very different. So yeah, I think there's lots of interesting things. So um, I think I'm open to suggestions also.
So 2D water that you think is a different phase?
Yes, I haven't presented the spectroscopy results, but we have now some interesting spectroscopy results wherein we could use bulk IR, but in a synchrotron and do with our channels. The water, the peaks are very broad usually. So we are now not trying to delineate all the 5 bands, but we can see the centroid shifts significantly. So it goes to more ice-like phase, which is I think predicted in many theory papers, but we are seeing it experimentally that it shifts very nicely. We go from 1 layer to 2 layer to 3 layer, 4 layer. So
Yeah. So, would you please go to that graphene, the transport of water in graphene
yes,
channel? Because it reminds me of the superfluidity of helium. So,
Yeah.
So the previous slide
Yeah.
where you show that anomaly,
Yeah.
particularly for graphene.
Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. When the channel is small, it becomes faster, right?
Yes.
Because intuitively, that's not
Yes,
what you would
that's not
expect.
what-
You would expect the other way around.
Yeah.
But that's what the superfluidity of
Yeah.
helium known for. No? But is it due to just not the classical effect? Is it like really some quantum mechanical phenomena that drives this?
So
That they become in absolute, synchronization together? Because it's not at all intuitive to imagine that in a narrow channel you move faster, right?
So I think there are the wall also plays a role here by non-interactive role, because if we had an interacting wall like HBN or mica or any hydrophilic surface, then we wouldn't see this anomaly. So because graphene is not fully hydrophobic but not super hydrophilic, so the water layers are now, we are talking about at the peak 3 layers to 3 layers of water. So I think these are more like surface layers, whereas the neighboring interactions become smaller.
Because even the graphene electronic structure is actually far very different than the HBN.
That is another interesting,
maybe some
yeah.
quantum mechanical phenomena is really driving it, like in the superfluidity of.
So back in 2021, when we published this paper, we didn't look at it in that perspective. But recently, there have been papers, especially last year, wherein they did the analytical calculations with the graphene and graphite, and they even say like the plasmons of graphite and can be playing a role in the phonon interactions, and there could be a phonon mediated interactions where the walls.
Right. Yeah.
Where the walls no longer behave like a passive
because even
walls.
there is a big community of people who look at actually the transport in nanographene channels actually of water. So
yes,
even with ions and together.
Yeah.
So that's why it's quite interesting to see such
Yeah.
a phenomena. If I may be
Sure.
allowed to ask one more question. In the case where you have shown this hysteresis in the conductance, so why are you using actually millihertz? Because that seems to be very slow.
Yeah. Because we are
for a memory application
Yes,
to run,
yes.
I would have expected actually that you have
Yeah.
a much
higher
frequency. So why are you?
because we are with this water, and we dominantly go into capacitive regime when we go at very high frequencies. So I think inherently these processes cannot be so fast as
So
well.
that's actually one of the drawback in this,
Yes.
because it's very slow.
It's I think
Like-
it cannot be very fast, but
Ah.
it can be good at mimicking some of the
Correct.
natural processes better.
So that takes me to this question: will D2O move differently?
D2O,
Because the dynamics then is going to
yeah.
be because
it does move differently, but is it more than beyond its change of the
what would predict? What
Yeah.
would typically predict? The mass would predict.
yeah, so is it more than the mass change or the viscosity change? That we haven't quantified.
So
Yeah,
that's where the quantum.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that's something, because always when we are doing these measurements, it's in the ambient, there is a fast exchange of D2. I think we should do this kind of measurement very
set up,
carefully.
set
Yeah,
up a controlled environment
where there is no exchange.
Correct.
Yeah.
So while you are answering other questions, I want to ask. I want to keep one point, to her brain so that she can answer this. How do you make money? Okay, this is point number one. And point number two is that what are the opportunities for people here? So these you can answer in the course of
Yeah. So
any other.
so far I haven't made any money.
Ask
So
some enjoyable questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So
That's
that
also important.
you put the speaker really into trouble.
Yeah.
You don't have to substitute.
but it's important to make money. But so far, no, I haven't made any
No,
money.
initially.
No, you don't make money, but how can? Because tomorrow's generation, Gen
Yeah.
Z, how do you make money?
One question I have, like businessmen thinks about money, but scientists really don't care.
I say we did not come to the last bench at all.
I can shout to
So come to you.
amazing. You touched the pace upon, or rather, you started the talk with aquaporin, showing that it can control the orientation. So, how far have you reached in
With
terms of the
respect-
orientation? Are you brainstorming something?
Maybe we are controlling, but we don't have a technique to know this.
Right.
I think there are so many research gaps when we enter this kind of a sub nanometer scale. There are only few techniques that we can adapt. Like gravimetry is bulk technique. We could electrochemistry is bulk technique. We could still adapt. But when it comes to precise, like even like TEM may not be so helpful, because there is beam damage, and like at that scale, whether you would be able to resolve individual molecules. I think there's so much scope in the development of techniques.
But could look at scattering, for example, X-ray scattering.
The amount of
next-
sample is one
Yeah.
one problem. Yeah.
Would be amazing to see actually those channels filled with absolutely arranged water molecules. And
Molecules.
this would be
Uh,
beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's the matter of like which nice technique can be used and adapted with the measurement configuration. Like quantum sensing is mostly the one which I presented, NMR, is mostly used in the solid states for like magnetic materials, and mostly magnetic materials to 2D materials to see their magnetic domains. But we were able to do this for water, and after that we also see several papers now doing it for water. So
One more I'm having. So, when you mentioned that you are moving to 3.4 angstrom channels and only H plus can pass, so now these protons are these protons same as bulk protons?
the protons are same, but they are moving at much slower speed because the water is highly ordered. We can quantify the diffusion coefficient of the proton. So we compared the 3D diffusion coefficient, 2D in our case, and carbon nanotubes 1D. So 1D is a single file, the proton can easily move. 3D also is okay. 2D is the slowest because it has to find a neighbor to move by the Grothus mechanism. So we could quantify that the diffusion coefficient in our channels is much smaller.
So, still is happening via Grothus proton jump mechanism.
We think so.
Thank you.
Yeah, we applied the same equations, and yeah, again, this is like an open thing. There's lots of scope for development of theory,
Now
development
we are
of
coming to the last bench. We have a
experiments.
point.
Now, spectroscopies, that's why all
Yeah.
questions came.
I forgot this question.
You have a point. Go ahead.
No. You have to make the point.
You made a point. No, we just sort of pulled it out. So please go ahead. Go ahead and make your point.
You're putting him in the spot now.
No, you said scientists don't care about money.
Yeah, generally I have been many scientists like MPRs and stuff. So they were studying about finding how the natural law works. So I was much concerned about how science basically, fundamental science basically works. When I was very young, so I used to see stars and light, all these things. So later I start thinking, and otherwise I had no much interest in science. Later I got interest in that what much so I came like this. But it's like I was normal person. And same time I have a questions also like you are in Manchester, UK. If you see Indian universities, there are few IITs, good facilities in India. I saw good facilities and SEL and cleanness also. But in other universities, we have not that much facilities. So
You can create all
really
of them.
money needed.
You can create all of them. By the way, these were not existent. You know, create all of them.
Yeah.
Investment from the government. I think
Investment,
Plus,
your
plus,
own.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to be
You have to.
different. Then
Yeah.
you can make all of them.
You have to be a key person. I mean, like Professor Pradeep is one of the best examples that we should cite for that actually.
Just go and make them. That's what.
And how do we make money? I think in a way I see like with nanoscale technologies, one of the most successful recent like UK companies was Oxford Nanopore. It started off from like nanopore sequencing, like it's still not as good as probably PCR type of sequencing, but over time I think after what 15-20 years now, they are in the phase where they have generated the technology enough for sequencing even COVID time. So I think it started like what we are doing in academics is like one piece, which is just the measurement, but there is a lot of engineering around. So that happens only when you take the idea and engineers come around.
Actually, what he is talking about, like, we are not servants to the industry, right?
Yeah.
We are something on ourselves.
Hmm.
So why do we behave as servants to the industry? That's what he's asking actually. I feel. Like
Yeah.
there is something called determinism and something called utilitarianism. Right?
Yeah.
In utilitarianism, what we do is we try to use the
Mhm.
things that we have created, or we try to create things to use it. But in determinism, what we do is we try to find new things and find the explanation for something that we don't know. So why are we leaving determinism and going more towards utilitarianism?
I think it needs the passion as much as Professor Pradeep, and also time. Yeah, probably. Yeah, it can happen if one invests enough time, more than anything. I think time and determination,
I
not
feel
giving up.
very bad when I see
Yeah.
that when we as science people act like servant to the industry.
It is true. The industry benefits a lot when
Yeah.
maybe out of 100 things, one thing may work.
They are
But they do
benefiting
benefit.
from us,
Yeah.
so we should show attitude.
Mm.
They show attitude and we we feel bad. That's the wrong thing. That's it.
Yeah.
Second
I
point.
think
Yeah.
Second
both
point.
you are absolutely-
Opportunity.
Opportunities. So, opportunities wise, like I mean, there are PhD programs. If you are MSc students, there are PhD programs. There are only few scholarships. Like I am being very realistic. So, but we have always supported in my group. I have supported students for fellowships, scholarships. Every year, this is the cycle that it opens like around December, November, December. It opens at even until like March. So in my group also, I have several students who are funded by scholarships from India. Yeah, and
So it's the RC fellowship or
no, there are university-based fellowships like Dean's Scholarship and Bicentenary. These two are university-based scholarship. And sometimes we have joint programs. We have one student from ISC, joint ISC and Manchester program, joint IIT Kharagpur and Manchester program. So I have also one student from there. So those students specifically do 2 years in Manchester, 2 years in the respective ISC or IIT Kharagpur. We want to expand this to other universities, and even with Chennai also we have had several discussions. But these things go on after several rounds of discussions and then they come out. But once they come out, these two programs so far have been doing quite well with Kharagpur as well as with ISC. There is already several students who have graduated. About I think each cohort is not too large, 4 to 5 students in each cohort. But so far, I think already 4 years has passed with 4 consecutive cohorts. And there is also Commonwealth split site. But year by year, I think we hosted students last year, a couple of years ago. That gives a 1 year visit scholarship. So those PhD students who are in abroad, they can come to UK and then do the 1 year visit. That gives a stipend, that gives everything. However, I think recently India is no more in that kind of Commonwealth list, because India is already in the developed, like not fully developed, but like, it's not in the developing country list anymore. So the number of scholarships are also getting less.
I think the EPSRC scholarship is also, I think, giving £20,000 per year.
It's the 20,000 is a common for every student. It's not only APSRC. I think unless Marie Curie type of fellowships, every student gets only 20,000. But there's no tax.
Okay, I think we are.
And I
Thank you.